This adventure is brought to you by the Freeze Dry Guy. Call 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
And welcome and good evening, everybody, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, broadcasting you live from the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network. And tonight is October 15th, 2012. And it's always a pleasure to be back with you, and I want to bless you and thank you, as always, for being part of this broadcast from wherever you may be listening from. Now, I have a very special guest, first time on this broadcast, actually. Her name is Dr. Rita Louise. Now, if you're not familiar with her, Rita Louise is a 20-year veteran of the alternative health field. She provides guidance, support, and encouragement as you begin to create a balanced life. With the help of Dr. Louise, you will find the means to succeed in life, both personally and professionally. Medical institutions can often offer deep insight into state of your life throughout non-evasive medical intuitive evaluations. As Dr. Louise, Dr. Louise looks into your body, mind, and spirit through the practice of medical intuition, she can unlock secrets about physical, emotional, and spiritual issues that can cause your life to run off course. Rita's latest book, which has just been released, and I believe it just was released within the last few weeks, is entitled Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. Now, prior to that, she also released the book Dark Angels. Dr. Louise, welcome to the program. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Robert. I am so thrilled to be with you and your listeners tonight.
Oh, it is an absolute pleasure, and I need to apologize to you and to the audience for not getting your information up earlier today. It was a very hectic day for me, so I need to apologize for you publicly now, and to my listeners. Folks, sometimes I just run myself ragged, and Doc, I apologize.
Apology accepted.
Well, thank you very much. Now, I'm extremely interested in your book, and I know we're going to get into that in just a few minutes here. But let's just talk about your background and how all this evolved for you, when it all started.
You know, it's a very interesting story, and it's a little bit convoluted, and I'm going to try to get it down to being not too long. But growing up, you know, most people, or most kids, in order to get their allowance, were required to do chores around the house, and that's what your allowance was based on. Well, in our house, it wasn't based on chores. It was based on reading books. I didn't make up the rules. I just followed them. And my interest very, very, very early on was archaeology and anthropology. And so I basically read the entire section of archaeology and anthropology in our local library. And then I got turned onto the concept of ESP and psychic phenomena, and my focus shifted from being interested in that into, you know, what I do now, which is work as a medical intuitive and as a clairvoyant, and let that really guide my life. But I've always had an interest in ancient art, ancient philosophical traditions. And so one of the books that we didn't mention, Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, really brings in a lot of the religious philosophical traditions when talking about health and healing in the body. So I've always had this interest. And then a couple of years ago, I was watching this show on 2012 on TV, and I felt like the information that they were giving was, I felt like they were leaving things out.
Okay.
They would make a comment and say, well, the Mayan calendar this, and, in the Hindu tradition, they agree with it, and the Hopi, they agree with it too, but they never really talked about what their beliefs were. And I started researching the whole 2012 phenomena and found out that what they were saying wasn't exactly true. And we're not doing the show on 2012, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. But what I did discover was that the mythology that we have, we are led to believe one thing, and we're given pieces and bits and pieces of it from here and there, but no one's ever stopped and sat down and looked at it from a more inclusive point of view and put it all together.
So we're not getting a detailed picture, more or less.
No, a lot of people really try to rectify it with what the Bible says, as opposed to saying, okay, the Bible is a reference book, but I don't need to have everything parallel the Bible. And so we move the Bible to the side, and we do include some biblical pieces in the book where appropriate. But it's not the only story. A lot of people will talk about the Sumerians and the Anunnaki,
sure,
but they're not the only story. One of the things we found is that there is a very clear and consistent storyline that exists when you survey mythology from around the world. Can I give you an example?
Absolutely. Please do. I'm intrigued.
Okay. So everyone's familiar, I will assume everyone's familiar with the story of Noah and the Ark.
Yes.
At
least I am.
I think it's a pretty basic story, even for non-Christians. Well, it's a Jewish story, too,
right.
So Jews know it. Christians all, I would think, know it. And I would think, culturally in America, most people are familiar in the general sense. Noah, builds the ark, takes the animals 2 by 2 onto the ark, big flood, they survive, everybody else perishes. That's pretty much the story.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had heard, and I have repeated myself, is that, there are flood stories around the world. Well, the way scientists like to present it is, well, all of these flood stories are localized. And so everybody should have different flood stories. If my house floods, it's going to be different than your house flooding. And it's going to be different from somebody that lives in, New York's house flooding, or somebody that lives in France's house flooding. We're all going to have different stories of how our house floods.
Sure.
Wouldn't you think?
Well, absolutely. You take into consideration land masses, land structures, what our homes are built upon. Absolutely.
And, but these also, they don't say that they all happen at the same time, and so we would also have time variations, and there would just be a lot of variations.
Absolutely.
In these stories. What you find when you start looking at flood stories from around the world is a storyline that basically goes, there was a righteous, pious, honorable man without sin who is warned in one way or another that a flood is coming. And so he either builds an ark, gets a leaf from a tree, cuts down a tree, climbs a mountain, is saved by climbing on top of a leaf, some variation of him being saved, and the survivors are him and his wife, him and his brother, maybe there are some kids. But the stories are, in essence, we're not saying word for word, obviously they don't say Noah.
Sure.
But in essence, they're all the same. So in your neighborhood, why would there be a man and his wife and, have some animals and you would build this boat or climb a mountain? I was able to take all of the flood stories I could find, and I had a big pile of them, and put them into basically 5 categories.
Okay.
You know, boat.
Right. No, I
Leaf,
yeah.
you know,
No, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. So, worldwide, of course, if we're going to go back when we're going to take that aspect of it, yeah. I mean, there were a lot less people on the planet at that time anyway. But, sure, if there was a worldwide flood, I guess it would affect everybody differently at a different time, without a question.
Correct. But it wouldn't always be a pious man.
No,
It wouldn't always be, the husband and the wife and maybe some kids and the brother. I found it so fascinating that it just got me riveted into looking at all of this other mythology and using that as an example. That's what you find in all of the early stories of mankind and the creation of the planet is this continuity of storyline. The names change, the stories differ depending on the culture.
Right.
But they're not different stories.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's the same story, just basically with a new author, more or less.
Yeah. Or you're playing that telephone game, so you kind of get the story on the other side, but it's a little bit different.
Right. Well, okay. So please continue on from there. I'm very intrigued.
And so one of the things that we came to the conclusion on, myself and my co-author, is the stories that we have of the gods are perhaps not our stories about these people, but their stories about themselves. And they pass their stories down to us.
Right.
Because if we take, okay, and I'm just going to throw this out there, the general current understanding of when this global flood should have happened, okay, which was 11,000 BC, 11,700 BC. There were people in South America, there were people in Australia, there were people all over, granted not as many people, and so you have to sit there and go, well, how did these similar stories get all over the place? Now, I could understand it if we're talking about the Middle East and Europe and maybe India and Africa, because they had trade routes and there was, connection that was happening between these people. But why would you find a similar story in Australia? They were totally isolated. Or in the Americas, totally isolated from European contact.
Mm-hmm.
So
basically, the question to ask then is, why would everybody have similar stories who had no connection to each other worldwide, who probably weren't even able to connect with each other on any level at that point?
And our thought is that the gods told us their stories. Our history, which is their history on this planet.
Right.
And that's why the stories are the same. The names are changed, they're, obviously have evolved over time, but they're not our stories. They sit there and talk about the gods, like Zeus is a personification of lightning.
Right.
Okay. But when you look at the sky god, okay, what you find is basically the same character. They always deal with lightning. They always have a bad attitude. He's always very judgmental.
Right.
And so the attributes and the similarities between the sky god are consistent. Same with the god of fertility or the god of water. In the Greeks we had Neptune or Poseidon. But in other cultures around the world we had other characters that also have very similar characteristics. One of the things about the god of water or the god of the underworld, sometimes they get combined, which is where it gets a little muddy and confusing. Is always considered a trickster god, but he's responsible for the creation of man.
Right. Right, exactly. So hence, we move forward at that point to your latest book, which is Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. I'm assuming this is where we're going at this point.
Well, but understanding the foundation, and actually one of the things we discovered was that through this whole process, mankind is really just a footnote at the end of this very, very long story.
Right. No, I agree, and I think this goes back for many millions of years. And what you just brought up chronicles only probably, going back to 11,000 BC. I mean, it's such a blink of an eye. Where if we want to chronicle human life, which I think has been that has flourished and been extinguished on this planet many, many, many times, going back millions of years.
And based on mythology, I don't agree. And actually, in this book, we go back 4.5 billion years ago.
Which is quite that's going back to supposedly
the formation of the planet.
Correct.
Because I feel like there has been contact with, and I can only say extraterrestrial life because they obviously are not human, all the way back at that point in time. And I feel, the way the mythology reads, it appears as if these gods actually were participating in terraforming the planet and actually creating the animal life on this planet, and were very much involved in everything that happened on this planet.
Well, I agree with you, but you're going much further back than I would ever assume to go back that far. Which, if we're going back to the actual creation of this planet, that's extraordinary to me. It's extraordinary.
I think, at that point in time, the 4.5 billion years ago, the planet existed, but there was no life on it. And they were responsible for actually creating life on this planet.
So they meaning they're our ancestors who seeded themselves to create us at that point.
Correct. I mean, we're kind of like their creation number 3. They created different forms of life, that were intelligent. People get very confused because when you read myths, it talks about man, but it's kind of a misnomer. And so from a vocabulary, I want to say humanity, as a word talking about who we are here, what we see with each other. But there was other life, other intelligent life on this planet, but it wasn't necessarily human life on this planet, or at least that's how the mythology reads.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so let's pick up from right there. What do you think at that point we were? I mean, obviously we couldn't have been what we are right now, but a distant shadow of what we are now.
Well, the way the mythology reads is that there were these progenitor gods who I believe were critically involved in terraforming the planet.
Now, who were these progenitor gods, do you believe? I mean, Anunnaki is a very loose term because from what I've understood, there are many species that come and go from this planet that are, constantly surveying and interfering or helping to manipulate our DNA to enhance it.
And I don't try to identify them with any group because I'm not sure if there is a group. If I really had to pick, I would say reptilians. If I had to use a contemporary extraterrestrial word, that's the one that I would pick.
Okay.
These progenitor gods are often described as being half man, half fish, half frog, half man. But there's always this reptilian aspect to them. They're half reptile of one kind or another. Of course,
yeah, absolutely, I understand that.
But it's this group that comes in what's called the cosmic egg, which is pretty consistent in mythology around the world, which there are 8 of them that come here and create a race of beings, which are, in Greek mythology, they're the Titans. Mm-hmm. But they are a group of giants. Now, whether they genetically engineer them, whether they bring them as a subspecies, whether they're another group that, what their relationship is a little bit difficult.
Some mythology says,
yeah, it is. Some myths say that they're their children. Some myths say that they created them. It's vague. But that group of Titans, giants, they were gigantic. They are described as being bigger than trees and as tall as mountains.
Well, hold on. I want to stop you right there because, in actuality, if we look at the Egyptian monuments and these statuaries of these monolithic statues that they created, supposedly, and I've heard this, that what we actually see are actually life-size sculptures of the beings that were here at that time.
Well, even if you look at the Sumerian cylinder seals, you'll see a picture of a god sitting down, and the people next to them, kind of come up to their waist, maybe. I mean, they're big.
Yeah.
But it's not to be confused. There is another group of giants that we'll come to here in a second. But this was the first race of beings. And they usurp the progenitor gods and take over. And so they're hanging around, but I believe that they were very much aquatic in nature. And whether, some myths say that it's the grandchildren of the progenitor gods that come in and take over again. I think it's actually a third party, a third group of beings that come in, and there's a war. So in mythology, we have the war between Zeus and Kronos for control, with Zeus winning. But Zeus is a sky god, kind of like the name left my head, so I'll just keep moving along.
Okay.
He was a sky god, and he took over from Kronos, who was a water god. I get into a whole lot more detail in the book, but I'm just trying to use names that people are familiar with.
Of
just
course.
To
Absolutely.
kind of move along.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay. And, and they take over. What's going on, And it's hard to tell what the relationships are, but it seems to me that they are an ancillary group of gods that come in and take control. And those are the ones that actually were left with their legacy.
Interesting.
And I thought if I had to pick a group, they would be more like the Nordics.
And I've heard that more than one time myself, by the way.
All right, people have told me that I was totally politically incorrect, but they're the white guys.
Well, I don't say that's politically correct. You're saying it exactly how you see it.
And so our image of God is this white guy with long white hair and a beard, and it was the same image of God that the Native Americans had when the Europeans came. And they welcomed them with open arms because here are these people with beards that they had no experience with because Native Americans really don't have facial hair.
Right. That's absolutely correct.
One of the things...
Yeah, go ahead.
And I feel okay saying this on the show. Because
you should.
I feel like
this is an open forum, Doc. It's an open forum. You should feel free to.
Well, but some of the things that I think or have commented on regarding this topic, if the sky gods won, okay, and they beat the fertility gods, who are these partially reptilian beings. Okay, or aquatic, because they lived either in the water or under the water.
Right.
Our concept of evil is who? Who is the persona non grata of evil in Western culture?
Well, that's a very good question. I got to hear the answer to this.
Who's kind of like is portrayed as a snake.
Okay.
I'm asking you.
Okay, well, I would have to say that if we're talking about, now if we're going back biblically, and then we're talking about the actual snake that was supposed to lure Eve into eating the apple, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. Which would be a reptile.
Right. But he was the trickster, but he also looked out for humanity's best
right,
interest.
Which would be considered the devil, so to speak.
Right. And so my thought, because I think that we are so programmed and brainwashed into a certain set of beliefs that had the other guys won, would the devil actually be the devil?
Well, let me throw this at you. Let me throw this at you, Doc. You know, it always seems like this is the case, and if you look in our recent history, the people who write the history are the ones who usually are the victors, whether it's right or wrong, because they are able to manipulate it because they have won, I guess.
No, and I totally agree, and I came to that same conclusion, you know, and thinking the devil is evil because he lost, quote unquote.
I think I know where you're going with this. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, and that's what they want us to think, is that whole group of gods, you know, are evil, and so if there's interaction that we have with them, you know, then they're evil.
So basically, what we're looking at, in a nutshell, is that one group comes down, they start the human race, so to speak, and for whatever reason, there's another group comes in, defeats them, and takes over. So the other group that comes in defeats these other folks who start our human evolution here on Earth, basically write the history and form it to their beliefs, so we believe what they believe, more or less. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which makes absolute sense, by the way.
You know, one of the things that I found interesting, because we brought in, you know, current scientific theory, where this war took place, where we believe this war took place, and I don't have the number in front of me, but it was like 452 million years ago. It was right around the time of the Silurian epoch on the planet, and the highest form of evolution that we had experienced on the planet was, we had just gone through the age of fish. Okay, so we're talking aquatic, yeah. Mm-hmm. And reptiles had just started, and reptiles and amphibians had just started moving onto the planet.
Right. Doc, do me a favor. Let's hold that thought right there, because we got to go take a real quick break here, but I find this extremely fascinating. So look, everybody stick with us. This is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, with my very special guest this evening, Dr. Rita Louise, the author of her latest book, Men Made, the Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. Fascinating story. Can't wait to get back to this. So everybody stick with us. We'll be right back after the break.
You can feel that squeaky clean sensation like none other with Vitamer toothpaste and mouthwash. Vitamer toothpaste and mouthwash is a unique natural formula not found in any other oral care products. With a gentle combination of zinc, folic acid, myrrh, and clove oil, Vitamer effectively whitens teeth, removes plaque, and freshens breath, and it does it naturally without any harmful chemicals. Visit us online at Vitamer.com. That's VITAMYR.com. Or call us today to place your order at 1-888-558-8482. That's 1-888-558-8482. Keep your teeth and gums healthy with Vitamer toothpaste and mouthwash. Vitamer, nature's answer to healthy teeth and gums. And remember, it's all completely natural. Available at participating health food stores nationwide.
Yeah?
Did you want to see me, sir?
Well, I did, but now that I do, I'm not so sure.
Sir?
Johnson, I got a mission for you that could change your life.
Oh, good, sir.
It involves traveling halfway around the world without so much as half a clue of where you're going and what you're going to do when you get there.
Situation normal, sir?
Well, I'll be leading this mission, Johnson, so I'll be telling you what to do.
You, sir?
That's right, Johnson, and I say first things first.
Oh, good plan, sir.
And what I say is first is food. Always remember that, Johnson. Food is a big deal.
Sir, my brother-in-law can get us a really good deal on some surplus MREs.
Johnson, if you've got half a brain and that empty head of yours, you'll call the freeze-dry guy like I did. That food is better for you, it rehydrates faster, and it's good, Johnson, and it keeps for up to 30 years.
Will we be gone that long, sir?
I hope not. Now get your supplies organized and meet me down to the pier at dawn on Sunday. We sail at sunrise.
Yes, sir.
This adventure is brought to you by the Freeze Dry Guy. Call 866-404-3663 or visit freezedryguy.com.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pepino, broadcasting to you live from the Micro Effect Broadcasting Network. And it is the bottom of the hour. Now, if you're just joining us right now, I have my very special guest, Dr. Rita Louise. Now, Dr. Louise has written her latest book, which is Man-Made, The Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. And basically, what we've been talking about is the reality that mythology is not so mythical after all, that the reality of it most likely is that the mythology made up through our human history is based on real events that have taken place through multiple species that have come here to seed this planet, one superseding the other. And our reality is that we are star children, and basically I believe at this point, Doc, to say this, that we've been nurtured along, I guess, to a certain degree, but controlled very heavily, and the control still continues because the way we live our life on this planet, to me, especially me, is completely backwards, illogical, and it doesn't make any sense.
And I agree. There are a lot of people that come out of the, ancient alien theory group or the, alternative historians that like to say that mankind was created to be a slave species. And it's not that I disagree with what they're saying, but I like giving them a different word to work with because I think it makes more sense. And the word I like is domesticated. We were domesticated.
You know what? Very well put, Doc. I like to say sometimes, I like to put it this way, that we are basically the lab rats. I mean, we it's not that they hate us, and it's not that they love us. They basically look as an experiment in progress, and they continue to look over their experiment and make sure that it all goes well and it doesn't fail.
Well, before we came on the air, you were making a comment about how humanity has kind of declined in the last 100 years.
Yes.
And, my thought is that they're kind of taking the last bit out of us. They're taking the last bit of will out of us. Because, God forbid, think of this. Think in 20 years or 30 years when, our children are the older generation, the decision-making generation, and God forbid the power goes out. I mean, I know I could survive without power. Now, I don't know that I would like no running water. That would be kind of sucky, because I do live in a big city.
Right. Just like me, Doc. Just like me.
But I know I could live without electricity. I know how to cook. I can know how to cook, like on a fire.
Right.
I know how to cook from scratch.
Exactly. I'm going to be moving to your place when that happens.
Okay, thanks.
I'll help.
but my kids, I don't know. I think, I made them learn how to cook, at least, a rudimentary amount, but I think there are so many young people that don't know how to make anything.
Doc, hold on. Let me put it to you straight this way. And you know what? I'm not going to be politically correct in any way. Most kids today don't know how to do crap. And that's in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, unless it's connected to an Xbox or something. I remember when my kids they were like 14 and 16, 12 and 14. I don't know. They were in that area. And I asked them, I go, so, you're in high school now. I go, what are you going to say when you get to be my age that you accomplished while you were in high school? I said, by the time I was in high school, I had read my whole way through the archaeology and anthropology department section at the library. I could play 3 instruments. I had done this. I had done this. I had done this. I had done this. I go, what are you going to say? You made it all the way to the end of Super Mario Brothers?
Right. Big accomplishment, right?
They kind of
didn't phase them. Didn't get it. I understand.
No.
I know. No. I completely understand what you're saying.
But,
look, I don't have any kids, but all I have to do is take a look at my friends' kids and how what their behavior is.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like where we're heading is that we are getting even more domesticated. I mean, one of the things that is a control are laws. I mean, our first laws came in. Actually, the first laws that we know of, okay, it doesn't mean that there weren't laws before, but the first laws that we know of, according to biblical material, came in with Noah. Okay, so we're talking, thousands and thousands of years ago. But one of the things that happens is that when you take the people that are the outcasts, the people that are violent, the people that are deformed, the people that have these issues, and push them over to the side, they're no longer in the gene pool. So now you're breeding a more passive group. And our laws keep us under control. And obviously we have more and more laws every day that are trying to keep us under more and more control.
Look, there's natural law and there's man-made law. In my opinion, Doc, the man-made laws are simply there to, and I said this to you before the show, they're simply put there to restrict us even further and for the people who are running this planet to basically gain more power over us.
But it's part of our domestication.
Right.
Because now we're just, think about it. When we think about domestic animals, domesticated animals, I mean, we have our dog, so the more you train the dog, the better compliant it's going to be. I mean, cats.
Yeah, total sheeple. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And just do whatever we're told to do without thinking about it, without questioning it.
But that's the thing. So how do we transform and become more spiritual and letting go of the stupidities that we deal with on a daily basis, how we are manipulated on a constant basis, and to evolve into a higher species of etherical people with wisdom and knowledge without having to destroy ourselves with these incremental, encroaching governmental tyrannical laws that we have faced for thousands of years.
There are a lot of people that have really kind of, hooked on to the whole 2012 thing. Either we're going to destroy ourselves, but then there's the whole we're going to transcend and, live in peace and harmony with each other. And my feeling is, as a race, as a people on the planet, the only way that we deal with any kind of change is when it's a necessity. When there's some kind of adversity that happens that forces us, when we have no choice at all. I think, if we were talking 5-10 years ago where people were really starting to talk about, becoming more community-centered or more globally connected, I think we would have had a chance. I don't know at this point in time if we can do it. I don't know if we as people can make that change. I don't know if enough people really want to make that change. They give you the lip service that they want to make the change, but I don't know that they want to.
Well, I know I see that on a daily basis. I'm sure you deal with that on a daily basis, as far as people saying, yeah, I'd like to see these things change, but they make no conscious effort to do it.
Well, yeah. I used to live, I've lived a few different places, but I lived in Washington State, and they were just really big on recycling. Big on recycling. Well, I live in Texas now, and you don't even see recycling containers anywhere. If you want to recycle in your home, the place I'm living now, they actually do pick up recycling. The last house that I was in, not so much. You would leave your recycling out there, and they would just ignore it.
Right.
And that was only cans and newspapers,
Right.
So it's just very limited and very finite. But I just don't see people wanting to get out of their comfort zone. They don't want to, and I'm just going to be very cliche here. They don't want to recycle. They don't want to slow down on the roads and use less gas or turn off lights. They don't want their lifestyles to be compromised. They want everything, and they want it now.
So then, fast forwarding here from these multiple beings that have been part of our manipulation and our transformation, do you think right now we are going to end up as a total slave species to our owners, or are we going to break free?
I believe that we will have the opportunity to break free, and I hate where I have to go with this, but I feel like there would have to be some kind of a apocalyptic event for us to kind of shake our heads off.
Well, this is what I keep saying.
And go forward, because we're too stupid.
Well, you know what? To a certain degree, for the majority of us who are very awake and understand what's going on, it's going to be a sad day, but it's also going to be a joyous day. But I also believe that this apocalyptic event is going to happen simply because of humanity's own stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a transformation. It's a transformation. It's a transcendent, transmuting transformation that we are going to have to accept whether we like it or not in order for us to reach the next level of wisdom in our society. I think you made a lot of good points earlier, about the gardener, basically tending to his garden, clipping the dead leaves and clipping the weeds so its garden can grow fully, I guess. And it's metaphoric, of course, but the reality is that in order for us to go to that next level, I think that needs to happen, unfortunately.
And one of the other pieces that I think why I think it needs to happen is we really need a big paradigm shift. You see the movies about, these apocalyptic events, and all the government people are saved. It's like, no, they're the ones that need to go.
Yep.
Because they're the ones that want to keep the laws and keep the status quo. And it's like, no, we need to, take all the laws and and throw them away, or at least put them to the side, and come up with something that makes sense, so that we don't recreate.
But Doc, most people think that the movies are manipulated by the governmental shadowy people. They think, oh no, that's not possible. How about yes, it's always been possible, and how about even this, that to a certain degree, these monsters have to actually tell you what they're doing. Of course, they're very cryptic about it, but once you wake up, you realize that the cryptic notes are very easy to read.
Well, I mean, have you watched that new show, Last Resort, about the rogue sub? Oh, interesting. Very interesting. It's about a sub that was given the order to send a nuke into Pakistan. And when they questioned where the order came from, because it came from like a secondary notification center from Antarctica or something, the U.S. actually fired on the sub, and now they're rogue. And it's very interesting in the politics, and so, but then these other people went into Pakistan, so the spin in the U.S. is totally different from the reality of what's actually happening with this sub and with the warships that are all in the Indian Ocean. And it's like, how long is this show going to last on TV before they pull it?
Well, and again, that other and Doc, I don't watch TV. I do not watch TV. I read more than anything else, but I know that there's that new show, Revolution, where the power completely goes out worldwide, and we're basically thrown back to the Dark Ages in a certain sense. And they use that fear factor, and it's always some general or some admiral who is trying to impose his will upon people through fear and domination and, death. Mm-hmm. And it's disgusting, and you're right, that's the thing that needs to go. It's these people who are the ones who've created all this. They're the ones that need to go away. We don't need anybody to rule us. I mean, these leaders, let me tell you something, Doc, these so-called leaders, they couldn't walk me across the street.
I've had conversations with people, if a UFO did land on the White House lawn, who would you want to go meet with, make first contact? Now, the obvious thought of the government would be, well, you'd want to have, this general and maybe the president of the United States or, some diplomat or whatever.
Or just a general dip.
And my thought is, if it was up to me, I would want, the Dalai Lama to go.
Yep.
Somebody that it comes from a spiritual base as opposed to a potentially military base.
Yep. No. I couldn't agree with you more, Doc, but that's the problem. The sheeple are brainwashed. And, there's a good percentage of us who have woken up. I really believe that, but I don't think
we feel so powerless.
I don't feel powerless. I don't feel powerless just because a person like yourself who's on the air, just like I am, who talks about them. Folks, by the way, I forgot to mention this, that Dr. Rita Louise, she has her own talk show. And Doc, what is the name of your show? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Just Energy Radio, so www.justenergyradio.com. And it airs live on Fridays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And just because I commend you for what you do, to stand up and realize the manipulation and all of it. People just don't realize how badly they've been manipulated, twisted, upside down, backwards, and they've tried so hard for us to make us believe this illusion. But here's the great part about this, Doc, is that even as hard as they've tried to make us all believe this, there's such a large part, well, not a large part, but there's a majority of us who've woken up. We took the sleep out of our eyes, took the veil off our head, and said, my God, where the hell am I living? Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of it. And I think if there's enough of us, we can have a real transformation on this planet.
It's like I have all these thoughts in my head. It's like, okay, pick one. Pick any
one of them, my dear.
But again, it to me, okay, and this is to me, it's like there's people that want it, but people aren't willing to do anything about it. I mean, it's kind of like Occupy Wall Street. I mean, actually, I was pretty surprised how much support they got, even though they, in the media, totally badmouthed half the people that were there. But I was very surprised at the number of people that turned out and occupied Wall Street around the country.
Right. Well, and I agree with you on that, and I'm surprised they stuck it out as long as they did. But, you know, I think it comes down to this: when your belly's empty and you can't afford even to pay for a place and feed yourself, let alone try and make some sort of life for yourself, I think that's when people start to turn on the lights. Maybe. Maybe.
I have actually I will give him credit because he gets on my case for not giving him credit. My husband and co-author of this book, Wayne of Liberty, his comment has been, what if they cut off food stamps?
Right.
Or that kind of support? There'd be a lot of changing going on. A lot of changing.
You know, that's the things that I don't think they're going to cut off, like Social Security and food stamps, to keep that majority of the masses asleep. Because if you look at it, we have what now, 54 million Americans on food stamps. The baby boomers are retiring. They're going to be collecting a hell of a lot more Social Security. Where's all this money coming from? Except they're printing out of thin air, and that majority of the masses are not waking up to the reality. You have one section of that food stamp class who don't want to know, and then you have the other ones who worked their whole lives, want to retire and hopefully get some sort of Social Security on top of, you know, their benefits plans of whatever positions they worked in life. But if that all falls apart, if that end of it falls apart, there will be total chaos, absolutely. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to allow that in order to bring in this new tyrannical new world order, in order to finally prune the last leaf off the tree to be totally complacent.
You know, and I think this upcoming election is kind of a joke. It's like...
It's a total joke.
It just seems like a farce.
But they
the
all
whole thing just seems like, well, but even more so. I mean, I could at least sort of pick before. Now it's kind of like... It almost feels like it really doesn't matter because it's not going to change the story. It's just going to be more of the same and just a different face.
And exactly what you said earlier on in the book. That's exactly what you said. You know, the spoils go to the victor. They who write the decrees of our history, and it's so sad. It's such a game of manipulation. But if people were to understand and realize that if they would simply wake up and say, look, I know I've been manipulated and I need to do something about it. There's people out there who know the game, who know how badly they're being manipulated and still don't do anything about it. I would say they're probably more to blame than anybody else at that point.
I just want to know, because there's going to have to be a tipping point at some point in time. You know, whether it's, you know, they start sending people to the re-education centers. Yeah. I like that name much better.
Being so kind, aren't you?
Yeah. Although they'll, you know, I'm sure they'll put a total spin on it and have those people be evil.
Yeah.
And, you know, doing something terrible. Actually, I do listen to talk radio when I'm in my car because I just like the noise. And they were talking about some woman, I think it was a woman, who had gone to court and didn't have a good outcome in her court case. And apparently there was some undercover cop who was involved in the court case. And the woman posted a picture of this undercover cop on her Facebook page with a disgruntled comment, and now they're talking about arresting her or something like that because she put the undercover cop's life in danger.
Yeah, and how much danger she could actually put him in? Please.
Well, it's not even what danger she put him in. It's like, well, how do you spin? That was her experience. That was her experience with that man. Is there a law that says I can't take a picture of an undercover cop and put him on Facebook?
And by the way, he's a public officer.
Yeah.
Exactly. But no, now you have free speech zones. Is that correct? Free speech zones.
You got to stand out there with the smokers.
And I happen to be a smoker, and
that's where all the cool people hang out, dude.
But it's really beyond me, dear doctor, to talk to so many people who are so awake, but realizing that the majority of the masses are so asleep, and now with everything coming down upon us. I mean, look, the reality is 2012, to a certain extent, it's just a number, but I do believe that we are facing a very catastrophic event happening on this planet anytime soon. The Earth changes, and it has nothing to do with global warming. Of course, you and I know this. Mm-hmm. It has to do with the precession of the change that the planet and physically that we are going through, and this planet is going through a very hard, real physical change, and the masses remain asleep even on that level.
Well, it's easier to watch Seinfeld or whatever the current pop show happens to be.
That's exactly right. That's absolutely right.
But one of the other things that we're seeing is that, one, there's a lot of distractions. There's TV, there's Facebook, there's games, there's, that part. But one of the other things that I think people are seeing is that they're having to work harder, work more hours, get a second job so that they can pay bills.
Right.
And so, you don't really have the time or the energy to really...
You still there? I think I lost you. I lost you for a second.
I glitched on you, huh?
You did. Very typical. It happens all the time. But
hi, those powers that be.
The worst.
Thanks for listening.
Yes, thanks for listening. And you're right. The worse the situation gets, the more the masses, they make them work harder. The slaves work harder because they have to keep them distracted. But real quick, Doc, because we're getting ready to end the show here, your other book, Dark Angel. What is that about, really quick? Because you know what? I never got to read the bio on that.
It talks about ghosts and, I don't want to say ghost hunting, but it talks about the different kinds of ghosts and different types of scenarios that you might encounter a ghost. Vortexes, ley lines. I talk a big section on attached entities, which are ghosts that attach themselves to you and actually try to control and manipulate your energy. See that? Manipulate? They're big on manipulation.
You know what? I'd love to have you back talk about Dark Angels, because that subject always fascinates me. So stick with me after the show, because I want to book you for November, because I want to definitely talk about that. But real quick, give out your website and where can people buy your book.
Okay, so my primary website is soulhealer.com. That's SOULHEALER.com. That is a portal to everything Dr. Rita, so you can get to the Just Energy radio site. You can get to any of the books or products that I have to offer on my website. If you're interested in getting a psychic reading, you can get information about there. Everything you can get to from that webpage. Man-made, the Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods, in addition to being on the webpage, and we are autographing anyone that gets purchased directly from us. But it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all those, regular online outlets.
Well, Doc, I got to tell you, absolutely fantastic. I enjoy speaking with you so much, and I'm looking forward to having you back on next month. So, everybody, this is the Whole Agenda Radio Show. I'm your host, Robert Pino, with my very special guest this evening, Dr. Rita Louise, and her latest book, Man-Made, the Chronicles of Our Extraterrestrial Gods. Please go to her website, check it out, and purchase the book. I think you'll find it fabulous. You guys take care of yourselves. Tomorrow night, Paul Landers and his special guest, Neil Freer. So you guys take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Now and you can feel that squeaky clean sensation like none other.
If you missed Pat and Linda Gorman's 2012 Wake Up America Wealth Protection Conference, then now's your chance to own this incredible conference on 12 one-hour CDs. You'll receive 12 hours of audio from the most knowledgeable economic experts in the country who for years have been helping people protect and grow their wealth in these uncertain economic times. You'll hear speakers like Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster, St. Clair Knoll, talk show host of the Financial Review, Jim Lills, a 30-year veteran commodities broker, Dr. Janice Dorn, PhD, market philosopher, and many, many more. Now's your chance to listen at your convenience in the private